You bring the crowns and heads of conquered kings to my city steps. You insult my queen.
Yeah, I have no interest in Got Stormy. Look, if this horse beats me, this horse beats me.
Side, it is Got Stormy, who has now come away with the lead. Got Stormy is in front as they come down for the 16th pole. She's in front here by 2. A late run on the outside from Set Piece, but Got Stormy has won the Grade 1 4-Star Dave Handicap.
This is Sparta!
Another week in racing, it's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? 2 bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of the shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last stunts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 300. Mr. Samich, be happy. We made it to 300.
Huzzah! I am happy, man. we're going to have a lot of Got Stormy talk today, and I have to eat some cheese about it, and then I have to talk about how frustrated it made me, and then I have to talk about how I feel like I should have gotten there, even though I talked to like 5 people who all said I shouldn't have gotten there. So that specific horse on this specific show is going to be the bane of my next hour's existence. So let's just do it.
I'll be nice. Don't worry. Listen, this was a fantastic weekend of racing. Some big upsets, some big names going down, some bigger names showing up. It was a lot of fun. And in episode 300, if you're joining us live, thank you so much. We're going to be taking some fan questions too. So if you have anything you'd like to send in for us to answer live on air, go ahead and do that in the chat right now. Yeah, everybody's loving the 300 logo. Listen, this was a big weekend. Got Stormy wins the 4-Star Day, but it's not the only race to talk about. Arlington won last weekend of big racing and a farewell, including a gigantic middle finger that they gave the entire press corps. I don't know if you heard about that. So
I did. Yeah. That was pretty shameful, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. But hey, it's going to be a fun show. I promise I'll be nice because we both were right about a lot of things and we were wrong about some things, and that's what we're here to talk about. But before we get into that, what's the best thing that you saw this week, Mike?
So I'm actually going to give this to Naira, which I'm pretty surprised about. Pat Cummings tweeted this and probably could have been worded a little bit better. But Naira has decided to limit all CRWs, so computer wagering, to 2 minutes or more before post. So in the last 2 minutes before post time, computer wagers can no longer come in at Naira tracks, which is an absolutely huge thing for people who are betting. I'm not as angry as a lot of people get when you have horses that load at 9-2 and cross the line at 5-2 or 3-1, whatever it is, because will pays will generally tell you when that is going to happen. So if you do a little due diligence and you check the will pays, you know. But I do think it's a terrible look for the sport when you have a horse that loads at 5-1 or 10-1 and goes off at 3-1 or 8-1 or whatever it is because of that late computer money that comes in that's decided that, based on their mathematics, that horse should not be that odds. So kudos to Naira for actually coming and stepping to the table and said, hey, we're going to cut off that wagering with 2 minutes to post. It'll give the general player who's there a better idea of what the actual off odds were. It'll give tournament players a better idea of what the actual off odds are going to be. You'll still see some fluctuations, but like at Del Mar this weekend, we saw a 9-2 go off at 9-5, which is ridiculous. You saw a lot more in those instances. So what is computer wagering? Someone's asking this in the chat. Essentially, some groups are their own tote systems and have a direct access into the pool, so they can put massive wagers in right before the races go off. It's what creates those fluctuation in odds. They're probably the biggest handle in horse racing when you look at it. It's almost 40% of the horse racing handle, so that it means that these computer systems are changing the odds late for the everyday mom and pop players who are betting $5, $2, $10 to win. And those people aren't really getting the right odds, and it messes with the system. You can often see it coming again in will plays and pick threes and daily doubles, but it still is just a terrible look. So I'm happy to hear that the computer wagering systems are being shut off at Naira. Hopefully we see other racetracks take note of this and do similar things. I'd love to see Stronach Group do it across their tracks. I'd love to see it at Del Mar, but I think this is the first step in the right direction.
That and the Pat Cummings tweet. My first thought was that 9-2 horse that won at 9-5 at Del Mar, and it's crazy. I think there's been one time that I've ever been the benefit of the tote flashing after they go in the gate, and it actually going in my favor. It was a Peter Miller horse. Remember when Peter Miller was winning everything in sight at Del Mar a couple of weekends ago? It was the last race of the Friday card. And I saw he had one horse left, and he'd won 3 and had 2 others that should have not have had a chance. They were running second and third. I was like, this horse he's 6-1, and so I bet $20 on him and walked away. Horse went out of the gate at 10-1, and then won for fun. So that's the only time that's ever happened. So I'm with you. I think this is pretty great. Talk more about the tournament side of it too when you get a chance.
Yeah, well, we're gamblers, right? So we always remember the photos we lost. We don't talk about the ones we've won. We always remember when our 5-1 goes off at 9-2. We don't remember when it goes the other way. It happens a lot both ways, but it's definitely more frustrating when you cash that ticket and you get it back a lot less money than you expect. Yeah. Well, from a tournament perspective, it makes a huge difference, right? So when you're debating between two horses and they're both at 9-2, and one of them goes off at 9-5, that you lose a ton of value. A lot of people wouldn't even be playing a 9-5 shot in the tournament because you're trying to pick a little bit longer horses. So like with NHC coming up in 2 weekends, literally 9 days away from NHC here, it's tough. You got to look at will pays when you're looking at what the odds are, because if you're just looking at the board, you are really selling yourself short, because that price can change halfway through the race in some instances, which is wildly frustrating. I think it was Arlington where they were through an entire first turn and the race, the odds dropped from 9-2 to 3-1. I mean, it makes a big difference. And like Dr. Tang says here, especially in live money tournaments, there's a massive one this weekend. And those odds shifts, you would pick a completely different horse if you knew that was the off odds.
And that's exactly where I'm glad you brought that up, because NHC is coming up. That this is a very timely discussion to be having. So it's nice that New York, that NYRA's been doing that without. I like that they're doing it without like a lot of fanfare. Like we didn't find out about it publicly from them. We found out from someone else, and they're testing the waters and making sure it works. So they're doing it the right way too. So all good things to see.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Hopefully other tracks do it. I mean, because look, they're still going to get just as much handle from these computer wagering. They're going to find where they believe there are shortcomings in the odd board. And what they're doing is they're using an algorithm to find out what the horse should be. And if the horse is 10-1 and they think it should be 5-1, they bet an amount of money to make it 5-1, right? But that's a huge amount of money into a pool like Del Mar. It's $10,000, $15,000 win wagers. And it messes with everything else. And if you think you're getting 10-1 and you're not, it can be really frustrating.
Do you remember the article that came out like a year or two ago? That guy that's in Hong Kong that just has the giant computer system, and the guy regularly just doesn't cash pick 6 jackpot wins. You remember that article from a couple years ago?
There's a lot of the jackpot pick 6 specifically is just freaking shady, man. Like those pools and the access that some computer wager players have. And if you want to look into it, dive into it. I know there's been multiple articles written about it, and they're much more well versed at this than me. But they have access to what combos are going on. So they can play the alternate combos, which means it's almost impossible to scoop the pool, which is why jackpot wagers are a terrible bet for your everyday player. If you're not betting $400, $500 tickets into days that are scoopable, it's impossible to win those bets. So that's why we always, I never will give out a jackpot pick 6 ticket unless it's a mandatory payout day. Obviously, those days are different, but a general jackpot pool it's fool's gold, man. It's a scratch-off ticket.
Speaking of which,
you can't win a jackpot.
Right. The Saratoga's was carried. Isn't like
143,000 going into tomorrow. Yeah.
Into tomorrow. So yeah, it was pretty crazy over the weekend. Especially all of those crazy finishes Friday and Saturday. It's really throwing off the math on that one. Listen, the best thing that I saw is I'm not going to go exactly where you think it's going to be. If you watch the live stream that we did on Saturday, it was Aaron and Mike Samich and myself covering Arlington and Del Mar and Saratoga's racing action. And so if you were watching live, you got to be there live when I was sweating out. I had 2 horses alive in the pick 4 sequence into the last leg after Got Stormy wins the 4-star Dave. I was alive to 2, and one of them missed by a half a length. 2, the third horse, if I'd gone to a $60 ticket, the winner was my third horse I would have put on. It was a horse that you definitely loved in the race as well. So it was close. It was exciting, but the reason it's the best thing I saw. So 15 years ago, 16, what year is it? 16 years ago. 16 years ago, my dad died, and the anniversary of his death was Saturday. And it's always a little bit of it's a day that I always try and focus on doing it, being as busy as possible, so I don't have to think about it. So the best thing that I saw was that live stream they got to be part of with you and Aaron, but also all the fans, everybody who was watching and commenting. I got so many nice messages from people. As soon as Got Stormy won, people saying congrats on that win, good luck in the final. So it was a lot of fun, but it was just another great reminder of the community that we have as a Racing Dudes team, all of the fans we have. You guys make this so much fun for us. It's why we keep doing these videos and these shows, is to interact with you guys, and hopefully we can all learn something. For example, I learned maybe sometimes, Mike, it's worth $20 to try and win 6,000. Sometimes it's worth the extra $20.
Maybe. I mean, that was one of those sequences where I was surprised it returned as much as it did, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But your point is dead on, man. Like, I think that horse racing is one of the best escapes for anyone in general. I mean, for me, I know in my life, it's one of those things that I absolutely love, and it helps you take your mind off the other things. And yeah, you're gambling, and it's all fun and games and all that jazz too, but it is a great way to escape from some of the day-to-day stuff and focus in on something else with some friends and some people that you want to talk about this specific sport with. So, and I love the fact, like, I love football, right? But that's every Sunday, right? You got every 30 minutes, you can have a conversation about a race with a friend at one track. If you really want to spread it out and be like degenerates like we had an early pick 4 at Del Mar, we had a cross country pick 5, we were playing pick 4s at Saratoga, pick 4 at Arlington. Like, you've got all of this content you can talk about. It's what I love about horse racing, is that you're able to just connect with people that have the same passion as you and kind of talk through it. So it's a lot of fun. And honestly, my best thing I saw was almost just your handicapping prowess from episode 1 to episode 300.
Oh, geez.
It's hilarious to go back and listen to you talk about horses in episode 1 and 2. And then you talk on that live stream and how far you've come in the handicapping world. So it would have been very fitting if you had popped the biggest ever pick 4 that Magic Mike Show gave out right before episode 300.
Yeah, listen, if you Frankenstein the ticket, it didn't take much to Frankenstein the ticket. It was Mike and I had a lot of overlap, and really all you had to do was just add Mike's 9 that he made a great case for on the show, and it came through. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, and thanks for the comment on that. I will say that I don't really toot my own horn that much. I will say I have gotten better at handicapping horses, and that since then, some of the angles that I used to really care about back then, not as important
anymore.
Not as important anymore.
I was really hoping someone Frankenstein it, because I added the 11 on Saturday, and if I wasn't an idiot and I used frickin' Got Stormy instead of Whisper Not, which was probably the more logical use, we'll get into that in a second when we talk about the frickin' race, then we're there. We're home in the pick 4, the pick 5, the pick 6, and we got $100,000 feed going on. But none of it happened. Oh well.
That's okay. What is happening is we're going to celebrate episode 300 on the Magic Mike Show. Some people are throwing some comments and questions in the chat. We love it. We'll get to them as we go along. But Mike, let's get into it. Riders up. Second time in 3 years, Mike Got Stormy beats the boys in the 4-Star Dave Handicap. What's interesting, I didn't talk about it earlier, but I mentioned in the group chat, I was going back and listening to 2 years ago when we covered this sequence on the Magic Mike Show. And I went, it's what I do on a daily basis. It happens to be either the first or one of the very first winning tickets, pick 4 tickets I ever gave out on the Magic Mike Show. You'd already done several by that point, but it was one of the first ones I ever gave out, and it was around $240, $260, something like that. For that ticket. This one pays a little bit more. Didn't cash it, but man, what a nice little bookend that you talked about, the 1 to 300. What a nice little bookend that could have been. That's okay, because Got Stormy still made me some money as a part owner. Second time in 3 years, she's winning the first horse since Wise Dan in 2012-13 to win multiple editions of the 4-Star Dave, named, of course, for the Sultan of Saratoga. Aaron on the Rocket Hour this morning said maybe call her the Sultaness. But listen, this was a really great effort from her. I was very happy about it. The one burning question: is Got Stormy now a legitimate player in the Breeders' Cup Mile division?
Let's pump the brakes. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit.
It's a question. I didn't say she is. I asked, is she?
She is a legitimate outsider. Contender, I'm thinking in my head like 2-1, 3-1 shot, top 1 or 2 picks. I don't see her in that spot, right? But if you look at this specific race, you say, well, this was definitely good enough to win the Breeders' Cup Mile. She's able to replicate this one. We're going to talk a little bit about the rail and how that helped her in this specific race, how it helped a lot of horses on the inside turf at Saratoga all weekend, and how that's important. But from this specific perspective, I think she's an outside player at this point. I wouldn't put her right at the top, but I would say she's like that 4th or 5th choice, and she could surprise. And like, I wouldn't be that shocked. I went back and I looked at this race afterward, and you almost feel like I made a mistake here when you handicap this. If her name wasn't Got Stormy on the form, I think I could have gotten to her, and that was the biggest problem that I had with it. When you go through this And it's really fitting that she won the 4-Star Dave. If you don't know 4-Star Dave at Saratoga, you should check it out. The horse won 8 times there. Well, 8 years in a row, the horse won there. 8 consecutive meets. From 2 to 10, this horse won at Saratoga. It was the ultimate horse for a course. It's a little ironic that Got Stormy now gets the job done. Now she is 3 for 4 at Saratoga. She is now 10 for 20 at the distance. This is a horse for course angle that definitely fitted Saratoga. I'm afraid her going to Del Mar puts her kind of a step behind everyone. Her career best buyers are all at Saratoga now.
It's true. It's true. I will mention that she did win the Grade 1 Matriarch at Del Mar earlier in her career. So the reason I think that she has a decent chance to win, or at least very much hit the board, is because that she runs well in California. We saw that in Santa Anita, the race before the 2019 Matriarch that she won at Del Mar, she was the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Mile and finishes second to Uni. She actually had the lead, and Uni, if you remember, just unleashed that devastating kick that she could unleash and got by to get the win. But this is a horse who very much loves firm turf, and she's going to get it at Del Mar. To Aaron and Ricky's point, what they talked about in Rocket Hour this morning, I'm sure you'll agree. I think you were kind of hinting at it. You need a price on her. You cannot play this horse at a short price. And Aaron went through and named all the times that she's been favored. She was the favorite in the mile against the boys last year. She was favored in the Matriarch. You got 10-1 on her last year in the 4-Star Dave. You got 12-1 on her here. I get it. I think that she is someone that she's definitely going to be part of the mix. But as far as picking a win bet, as much as I love her, I'm going to need a price on her, and I just don't know that we're going to get the right one.
Well, that's the struggle, right? I mean, like we always talk about this. There's a wedding and there's a funeral. That sure feels like the wedding. If she takes a big-time step backwards in her next race, there might be more value in the Breeders' Cup because then you're going to be able to get some of that value back. So maybe you're rooting for her to suck next time out so that you get some money on her in the Breeders' Cup. I think she's definitely a logical player when you're talking about like top 3 or top 4 finish. You're playing supers, you're playing tries. I think she definitely fits in the underneath side of there. It's just, is her A-plus game good enough at a racetrack besides Saratoga when you don't trip out, because she definitely tripped out? Is her A-plus game good enough if other horses bring their A-plus game? And that's where you kind of start to get worried about it.
So the next race for her is going to be, she's targeting the Kentucky Downs Ladies Sprint Stakes, which I believe she went to last year. Didn't she win that? Yeah, she won that last year. It's a grade 3 race. Popped a 103 buyer for winning it. So she's going back to a place where she's got plenty of success. I like that it's a sprint because she's most likely not going to get firm turf. So it's smart that Cassie's cutting her back. I don't think we're getting a price on her. I think she wins after this win. I think she either goes and wins or is very strong at Kentucky Downs, and probably 4-1, depending on who comes over from Europe. I will say if Palace Pure comes over from Europe for the mile, good golly, that horse is a monster. But we can talk about that later. Let's talk about some other horses that were in this race. Mike Set Piece gets up for second. He was coming out of the race the Wise Dan when he caught some like a Hot Brown. Wasn't able to catch Got Stormy, but that was a mile in the 16th race. This is a mile. What the hell happened to Raging Bull, your 9-5 favorite? Just never really seemed to get going in this stretch, and yet another kind of annoying run from him. Talk me through your thoughts on the other horses in this race.
I mean, look, Raging Bull is really disappointing. I mentioned the rails earlier. Look, the rails were set on the inner turf at 0 feet. Why is that important at Saratoga? Well, Saratoga has really tight turns, right? And so when the rails are set at 0 feet, which means it's actually at the inner rail, you have these tight turns, and if you get, and then it's a shorter stretch on specifically the inner turf. And so the combination of the two means if you're coming from the back or if you're wide and you try and accelerate too quickly, you get spun 4, 5, 6 out wide. It's what we saw from Set Piece, who was 4 or 5 out wide. Actually, Set Piece ran faster home than anybody else in the last 2 furlong or last half a mile, but was just not able to do it because of the trip or able to get home. And you saw that all weekend at Saratoga. That inner turf, when the rail is set at 0 feet, you have to, there's like the 1A position, the best possible spot you can be in is sitting third behind the pace horse. The second best possible spot is actually where Raging Bull was, which is fifth behind that third place horse, because you're able to then save all the ground, spin out, and absolutely fire. Raging Bull was in that spot, got the trip, and just wasn't good enough. It was actually really disappointing. It seemed like Raging Bull had turned a quarter, that Raging Bull had started running top-tier efforts, and then this was just a big-time step backward.
Whenever you think you've got him figured out, too, Like, I'm with you. In this case, he was my top pick in this race. By the way, I want to do a quick shout out to Jared Welch. I had Got Stormy on my ticket. She was the 4th horse on. Jared Welch is the one that had the balls to pick her on top with the 10-1 morning line. So credit for him for that one. But yeah, this goes to the burning question about how the inner turf course's rail position affects the racing. Those tight turns are going to be a detriment for horses trying to close. And if you look at Raging Bull in the 5 times now that he has tried running on inner turf courses, he's gotten 5th, 2nd, 3rd, and he was 6th in this race. And in the 2 seconds, the 2nd and 3rd, multiple lengths he was defeated. And that's inner turf courses at Saratoga or Belmont. He's terrible.
Well, and it's crazy too because he's 2 for 4 at Saratoga. It's just not on this inner turf, and he kind of tripped out here. That's the other thing. Like, yeah, well, I mean, they went a little bit slower up front. Got Stormy had the absolute perfect dream trip right behind the Whisper Knot and Blowout, be able to circle wide and just kind of accelerate through. And she was loaded the whole time. So I don't know if it really mattered based on where she got. But his trip was the second best of this whole field. I mean, you look at Set Piece, who probably got the worst of it of everybody. Actually, that's not true. The worst of it is whoever's sitting outside the speed at Saratoga is absolutely dead. You do not want to be in second place on the inner turf outside the speed. It's just a death trip. You're not winning from there. But Set Piece had to go 6-7 wides, able to rally up and get second, and really ran his tail off in this spot. I mean, came home in what was it, 23 or 22 and 83, and then 22:34 for the final quarter of a mile. Absolutely flying late, but just ran out of time and got a rough trip. I don't really think there's much that the jockey could have done in this spot. I know Aaron was giving him some shit right after the race. I think this is just what happens at Saratoga's inner turf. If you don't get the rail, you're trying to accelerate around a turn, you end up 6 wide.
Well, to Floringer's credit, Set Piece is a dead closer. Wise Dan last. The 2 races that he won before that he was 6th out of 7, 7 out of 8 for the early running. So this horse comes from way out of it. He was 2 for 2 at a mile in the U.S. coming to this too, so I don't think it was the distance versus a mile and a 16th. I think what Mike is saying is really just very true. Last question on this one, we can move on. Your boy Costa Creed, you did pick him, and he ran well. He got 3rd. Was just a slight bit behind Set Piece, a half length behind. I said that I was against him because he was doing 2 turns, and I think at this point in his career, he's probably better as a sprinter. As the charter member of the founding member of the Costa Creed fan club, where would you like to see Bill Mott take this horse next? Do you want him to route or do you want him to sprint?
Either. I mean, I thought this was just we just got over talking about the bad trip. He was in the second worst possible spot, which was right outside of Raging Bull, right? And so he had to go. He was 2 wide around the entire race course. I have no idea why he wasn't where Got Stormy was. That's where I kind of expected him to be sitting right behind that speed, not to be 5-6 lengths off the speed, sitting outside of Raging Bull. So he never saved ground, which you absolutely have to do at the Saratoga Inner Turf right now. If you're not saving ground, you're pretty much dead in the race. And so I'm not going to blame him there. It comes back with 100 Beyer, which is solid, was showing some ability to close into a pace where you didn't see, like Raging Bull, who's supposed to be this monster at a mile, had the better trip and performed worse. So I'm not going to knock him at the distance. I think this was just a rough trip for what you wanted to see from Costa Creed. So I'm happy to see him at 6, happy to see him a mile, may or may not play him, depending on how the race comes back. And for everyone like listening, actionable here, if the rails are down, so it's at 0 feet, which you can see at Equibase, it'll list it out, 0 feet. It'll show it in the changes for the day. If they're at 0 feet at Saratoga, you're looking for who is going to be the inside horse in the second flight of horses. So not the speed where you have like those 2 or 3 horses that go. You want like the 3 horse, the 4 horse, the 5 horse, the 2 horse that's going to sit in 3rd place. That is the position you want right now on this turf course. That's what's producing the majority of the winners. If you watch Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, inner turf, about 40% of the winners came from either that pocket trip or the horse sitting right behind him in 5th. That is where you had to be on this inner turf course.
And this is why I listen to the Magic Mike show, because nobody knows Saratoga like Mike Samich does. I love it. Mike, we'll move on. The next race that we're going to talk about was actually the race prior to the 4-star Dave handicap. You got 10 juvenile males in the Saratoga special going 6.5 furlongs on the Saratoga dirt, and talked about it on the live stream right after the race. A key example of, especially with babies, Mike, why it's important to not bet off the Beyer numbers, because in a field of 10, High Oak entered with the 3rd worst Beyer with a 57. Don't matter, second start, gets the win, pops a 90 Beyer, ties Witt for the highest from a Saratoga Stakes race, Witt winning the Sanford special. I'm sorry, the Sanford earlier in the year, or in the meet on July 17th. So my one burning question for you, these 2 horses are probably going to stay apart, maybe show up against each other in the Champagne at Belmont, but Witt is targeting the hopeful. We might not see him until the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So my one burning question, Mike, who is your pick from the Saratoga baby stakes that have won that you want moving forward? Do you like High Oak, who won the Saratoga Special, Witt, who won the Sanford, or is there a wild card that caught your attention?
Well, I thought about this because I was asked this on the feed, and I answered kind of wishy-washy. I'm going to take High Oak. And I'm going to take High Oak for the reason I was wishy-washy on the feed. If you don't break in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, it's over. Like, you have to be able to get out of the gate. Witt has not been able to get out of the gate in either of his first 2 starts. He's been ultra impressive, being able to come from off the pace. But with the fields getting larger, going around 2 turns, dealing with all the traffic, that's going to be a lot of trouble for Witt. So if you tell me to pick one today, I would take High Oak because of that. Now, if Witt comes back and runs a monster race and breaks well, I'm more interested in Witt. But the key there is breaking well. Not just that. Witt won as a short price hyped horse twice. High Oak just upset a field of 12 horses. One of them's going to get credit. One of them's not. One of them's going to be a better price. It's going to be High Oak. So I'm getting the better price on the horse that can break. I'm going to go with
I agree with you. I think that Witt's problem, you nailed it, is that he doesn't break well. I mean, it didn't help that he was on the rail, but he doesn't break well, and he's got a lot to do. Now, he's got the talent at this point to overcome it, but I'm curious to see what happens with the draw because I'm getting slight vibes of the 2017 Breeders' Cup Juvenile when Bolt Doro had all this talent in the world and he drew way outside and he had to, didn't have to, the jockey put him 4 wide around both sides, and then he ends up not being able to win it as a very short price favorite. You have to be concerned, and that's why I think another example is 2 years ago at the Breeders' Cup, Dennis's Moment. Dennis's Moment was training lights out. He looked amazing. That horse should have won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. From here to eternity, it doesn't break well, and it's over from there. And with these juveniles, you've got to be careful taking those short prices. So I'm with you on this one. He is going to go to the Champagne. Bill Mott taking his time, as Bill Mott is wont to do. We may very well see Witt show up in the hopeful at the end of the Saratoga meet. Were there any horses from this race, Mike, that you're interested in moving forward? We were both against the favorite, Dr. Jeff, who we thought was a bad favorite. Turns out that, well, we were right about that one. Ends up getting 5th. Is there any other horses here that you're looking to play next out?
I'm interested in Nakatani again, Nakatami again, depending on where we end up. I thought that this trip was a little bit rough for Nakatami. I think that Ward, having Ired Ortiz ride this horse and having this horse come into this race from overseas showed a lot of confidence in it. So I'm interested there moving forward. I think you're going to see some type of progression, first back overseas to second back overseas. I'm probably going to be against Gunite next time. I think we kind of found out that Gunite is a good horse, but not a great horse. Mm-hmm. So that's one that I'm more interested in trying to beat. And I think we kind of can just draw a line in general through the Bashford Manor now, which I think is important. So when we see horses come back from the Bashford Manor, I think we can just say, okay, not interested. And I'm proud of myself for getting off Double Thunder after really liking the Bashford Manor and then being like, nope, not going to use this horse.
Yeah, no, you are right. Yeah, I used Double Thunder was probably my top pick. I think it was one of my top picks in that race. I went very deep in here because I did trust Dr. Jeff and I wanted to spread. So looks like from the chat here, a couple other people cashed in on my. I like that Dennis. Dennis says seemed like an easy pick. The horse wins at 10-1, and he's like, "Yeah, it was an easy pick." That's nice little brag in there.
It was one of those things we talked about this with Bill Mott before. He just takes his time and mopes along with these horses. And when you see Bill Mott go maiden special weight, especially one that was not that impressive, and then we're going to throw him in a graded stakes at Saratoga, it tells you all you need to know about the horse. Like you said, you can almost throw out the buyer at that point. You have to respect the horse. You don't have to necessarily pick it. You have to at least respect that horse. And this horse probably deserved a little more respect than 10-1.
Speaking of some respect, a couple of people, Vinny and Ross in the chat with the wild card potential. Echo Zulu, that was that really nice Asmussen winner first out. If you think Asmussen's going to go to probably the Champagne for the next start, Breeders' Cup Juvenile is the 3rd start for this horse, so that's an interesting one to watch as well. We'll see what happens. Saratoga, still 3 weeks left, plenty of horses and lots of fun to see. Mike, let's leave Saratoga. We're going to one last time on the Magic Mike Show go to Arlington Park. We're first going to that's not the right race. I pulled up the Belmont Oaks. Santa Barbara, I'm going to vamp for a second here. Santa Barbara is an unbelievable horse. She wins the Beverly D Stakes, beating Mean Mary, who was loose on the lead. Looked like she was going to have a really stellar trip up there. Doesn't get the job done. Santa Barbara, that devastating kick. Ryan Moore kept her close early. Really strong performance. No question at this point, Mike. Europeans better than the Americans when it comes to the turf racing here. So really the question now becomes the one burning question for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. Where do you rank Santa Barbara, not among the Americans, but among the other best Europeans we've seen here, Althiqa and Summer Romance?
So real quick, Echo Zulu's a filly, so I'd be surprised if she ends up there. She is probably going to be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Dirt, whatever it is, Phillies Juvenile. Anyway, yeah, Stellar Tap is the male that Ashley debuted. That was absolutely very good. I was blown away by this performance. Let's just start with that. Like, she was impressive, but not that impressive at Saratoga. Then the fact to decide to go and have Santa Barbara face older, I was like, okay. And then you draw Mean Mary, who has a lone lead and kind of moping out there. And you've seen like Rushing Fall try to get past Mean Mary, and that was tough. Then you see Santa Barbara try and get past Mean Mary, and it's like Mean Mary's running in quicksand. I mean, so is Santa Barbara better mid through a 3-year career than Rushing Fall was late in her 4-year-old career? Like, that's the comparison that you're drawing now. So yeah, she's a freaking monster. I am still wildly impressed with Althiqa. I think Summer Romance you can put a line through. Summer Romance had an easy lead twice over the Saratoga turf and wasn't able to get the job done. Well, once over Belmont, once over Saratoga turf, wasn't able to get the job done either time. I like the fact that Althiqa was able to close into both of those told me a lot about that horse and that turn of foot. I'm going to go ahead and say it's between Santa Barbara and Althiqa when you're comparing these three horses. I think Santa Barbara was more impressive because of who she beat. I think Mean Mary is a very, very good horse when she's loose on the lead. We've seen top-tier fillies have trouble getting by her when she's loose on the lead, and we saw Santa Barbara dust her when she was loose on the lead. So I'll take Santa Barbara over either of those, but I think Althiqa is a solid step or two ahead of Some of the Romance as well.
Yeah, I mean, hell, at this point, if they're running the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf in a month from now, I think maybe I just use Santa Barbara, Althiqa. Maybe Summer Romance. We'll see what the pace looks like. Maybe she'll like the Del Mar Turf, but having that early turn of foot. I'm going to take Santa Barbara on top, though, because, and I said it on the live stream, the fact that Aidan O'Brien could have very easily, after winning the Belmont Oaks, could have gone for the second leg, the Saratoga Oaks. He says, no, we're going to go face older horses. We already got a grade 1. We're going to go for another grade 1, this time against older horses, and really see, in my opinion, he was trying to see where does she stack against a horse, Mean Mary, who's Graham Motion's going to send to the Breeders' Cup. So I will take her on top. This was really just an unbelievable effort. Aside from Got Stormy, which is, there's a lot of heartfelt feelings when Got Stormy wins, this was my favorite win of the whole weekend. I thought this was just phenomenal from Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I was wildly impressed. This is one of those I was really impressed with. And this is another horse, Warlake Goddess, who I thought was very, very good. We saw her last weekend. She was phenomenal.
Do love her,
man. Like this is a fun division. It's going to be interesting to see who runs well. And whenever it's in California, we went back and I looked at all the different stats for the California Breeders' Cup, how European horses do over that firmer turf. It's hit or miss, right? There's anywhere from 3 winners to 1 winner on those cards, depending. So it'd be interesting to see who shows up, who's working well over those turf courses, and then what we actually get from a rivalry perspective here, because you're going to have some no matter what, this specific division is going to have 4 or 5 horses that are good and contenders, and it'll be fun to watch.
Got a special celebrity in the chat. Had the leader, current clubhouse leader, for Rookie of the Year in the Mom division. Says happy 300.
Who's watching Colson?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Colson's apparently watching the show. Hi, buddy.
Yeah. The dogs are on babysitter duty.
He must have figured out how to turn off Bluey and put on the Magic Mike show. That's my boy right there.
Yeah, good shout out.
Mike, that wasn't the only race that we saw at Arlington Park, though. But that might be the one that we preferred over the other ones that we saw, because we also got to see Domestic Spending, who we really thought was probably the best horse in training, at least America-based, definitely on turf. Well, he shows up to Arlington and 2 Emmys. Just, I mean, walking the dog, they were walking backwards. They were so slow in that race. 2 Emmys holds him off, and really can't blame the jockey for what happened with 2 Emmys or really with Domestic Spending. I'm not going to anyways. My one burning question, because we really thought Domestic Spending was the clear-cut leader from the Americans at the Breeders' Cup turf, did Domestic Spending losing the Mr. D hurt his chances at the World Championships?
I hope other people think it did, because I'd love to get 2-1 on this horse in the Breeders' Cup turf. No. This is one of those situations where we always talk about how pace makes the race. Pace made the race here. You had a horse out front, and Pratt decided, and I'm not going to say it was right or wrong, decided not to go after that horse, because I could make an argument that what he did was fine. I mean, Domestic Spending came home in the final furlong of this, or final quarter of a mile in this race in 22.42 seconds. That is wildly fast for this distance. The late fractions, absolutely crazy. I posted this. You had 5 horses run sub 22s. Look, the horse fired. It just wasn't able to make up enough ground based on how slow the competition went early. There's zero chance. I shouldn't say zero, but there's a very small chance that you're going to see anywhere near the early fractions that you got in this race, in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, 52-2, 116-3 is like pedestrian. I can run that in a 5K. Like, it's just ridiculous how slow they were going early. You're not going to see that. And really, you wouldn't have seen that if Breezy Channel didn't stumble out of the gate and didn't push up forward. I mean, if a couple things happen differently, Domestic Spending wins this race by 8. But because of what happened early in the pace and because Pratt then decided not to push, you got in a situation where the horse just got beat, even though it ran really well.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it seems like we're probably not going to get the nice price because everyone is saying that they want Domestic Spending. Dr. Tings to take Domestic Spending again. Interesting from Ross is that his stride tells him he'd love a softer going. I don't know anything about that. I'd be curious to hear more about that information. Michael Myers says, I think the loss shows how amazing Bricks and Mortar was and how hard it was to go undefeated that year. Yeah, if you remember, Domestic Spending was basically repeating the same effort that Bricks and Mortar had a couple years ago when he was Horse of the Year and won the Breeders' Cup Turf. The difference there, Bricks and Mortar never won by much. He was kind of like, remember Winks? A little bit like Winks. Boy, he's not going to win by a lot, but he's going to get the job done. Domestic Spending loves to win for fun. Aaron wants to know, can 2 Emmys win the ARC after this effort? I don't think we're going to try and answer that question. However, I do have a bonus question for you out of this race, Mike, because this was not we talked about the 2 Grade 1 races, the Santa Barbara winning and now 2 Emmys. There was a 3rd Grade 1 race. A lot of people don't know that. It was called the Bruce D Stakes. It was between the 2 of them. My one burning bonus question, who was the more forgettable Grade 1 winner this weekend? 2 Emmys in the Mr. D or Point Me By in the Bruce D? I don't even know who that horse is.
Definitely 2 Emmys. I mean, like this was 2 Emmys moment, right? This is the champagnes everywhere, the wedding, this is the wedding, the bachelor party, the baby shower, all in one moment for 2 Emmys. There will never be another party for 2 Emmys in the Grade 1 stakes like this. When you look at Point Me By, look, this is a horse that debuted at Churchill, was able to win, went and ran and this ran against older twice in a row, debuted against 3 and up, ran an allowance against 3 and up at Saratoga, jumps into this race against 3-year-olds and absolutely dominates. 3-1 on the line, ends up going off as I think it was your favorite. Yep, $1.70 favorite, and gets the job done. I mean, this is probably not the only graded stakes this horse wins, whereas 2 Emmys got both those Emmys in one race and will not win another grade stakes.
I love it. I'm with you. I think they point me by because this was his only 3rd career start. I mean, this was not a good field. I think this is a worse field than what 2 Emmys beat because 2 Emmys beat Domestic Spending. But he at least has more potential, I guess. 2 Emmys is a 5-year-old gelding. He's by English Channel, but I mean, he's probably going to contend for some graded stakes. But at least for the
Kentucky Downs, buddy.
Nick Feldman wants to know, anyone willing to give Colonel Liam another chance off the freshman? I still think he's really good. I think Colonel Liam's good. I don't think he's a 1.5 mile horse, which is the turf, and I don't know that a mile is quite long enough for him. I think he's like that weird tweener that Rushing Fall was, where you need like a 1.1 mile turf race at the Breeders' Cup for that horse to excel. What do you think about Colonel Liam, Mike?
I mean, I like Domestic Spending more. I think that's the biggest problem I have for Colonel Liam. I also like Colonel Liam should have more in the tank. Right? Colonel Liam's is the 3-year-old, right? No, 4-year-old, right?
He's 4.
But he was running, kind of improving when we saw him in the spring there. He should have another step forward in him. The question is, will that step forward be as big as what we've seen from Domestic Spending? And when they faced off head to head, Churchill, Domestic Spending was by far the best horse, got the worst trip. The second time around, Domestic Spending absolutely blew the doors off him. And to Ross's point, I mean, he ran a career best buyer over a good turf at Belmont in the what was that? The Manhattan. So
Manhattan, yep.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to think there is cut in the ground that goes to Domestic Spending as well. Though I doubt we see that at Del Mar, but I also doubt we see, like you said, I would doubt we see that Colonel Liam there either because of the distance. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Was there one other question I've here? Oh yeah. Can Point Me By win the ARC after this effort? Aaron wants to know.
Definitely. Why not?
Ross wants to know, where does Gouffo stand in this division? Kind of in the mix with the Americans. I think that's about the best.
Yeah, he can trip out and win. That's where he stands. Like he's got the effort there, but he needs to trip out and he needs a couple of horses to get some trouble. But like that's a price play that I would not be against. If you're telling me Gouffo has a shot, I mean, look, Gouffo ran, what was it, 3rd in the Manhattan, which we just said was the best race we saw from Domestic Spending. And Trevian came back to win out of that race. Gouffo came back to win out of that race. Like There's a world where Gufo is dangerous if he gets a good trip and you see domestic spending get something like he did on Churchill Day or on Derby Day.
But he loves to finish behind domestic spending. If they show up together, just play an ice-cold Dave Weaver-style exacta with those two horses. Chat, way back earlier, I saw it, Javon. I bookmarked it. Don't worry. We're going to go to the chat for some questions. Javon78 says, I know everything is bankroll dependent, but how much should we be spending on pick 4s and pick 5s? Are we spending X amount only if we're getting back at least 10 times, 20 times, for example? What's your opinion on bankroll here, Mike?
I think it's a great question. I think bankroll management definitely matters of whether or not you're like, hey, this is the amount I have to spend per month, per year, per whatever it is. But I don't like the idea of saying I'm going to spend X of my bankroll in each sequence. I think that is the backward way to do it. I think you should handicap the sequence, and then you should decide how much do I think this will pay. I mean, it's a lot of times why I play $5 tickets and $2 tickets and a 50-cent ticket is that I'm looking at it from a perspective of what do I think the sequence can pay, and then how can I try and maximize that value. So if I come back and I think a sequence is going to pay $100 for a pick 4, I'm going to try and play a $5 ticket for $4 as a 50-cent base, right? Where it's 2 by 1 by 2 by 2, and play it for $5, cost you $40. You can turn that into $1,000. It doesn't make sense to me to be playing $40 tickets into something that you think you can make $100 or $200 off of. So quick, how do I do that? Well, let's say it's a pick 4 and you want to go 3 by 2 by 2 by 3, right? If you're not using a horse that's higher odds than the number of horses in the race, you probably shouldn't play the sequence, right? So if your highest odds in that first race with 3 horses is 3-1, then your highest odds in the second race is 9-5. All of a sudden, 2 of those legs are negative value for you for the 4-leg sequence. Probably not a good sequence for you to be playing, right? Unless you're absolutely hammering it, and that like 3 by 2 by 2 by 3 is your spread ticket, right? If you're stringing it down from there, you can find a good way to do it. But to me, it's all about figuring out what you think it can pay, where your opinions are, and then working backward from there. So if I think a sequence can pay on the low side $1,500 in the pick 5, then I'm probably saying, okay, well, I think about 1 out of 10 times I can hit this. Somewhere between 120 and 145 is where I want to end up playing that ticket, or 120 and 150, right? If I think it can pay, 10, 15,000, I'm willing to put in $200, $300, $400 tickets if I think it's really that valuable. I don't do that often because I think more often than not, you're wrong. It's not going to pay 10 grand. 10 grand is the rarity. It's not the norm. The norm is usually somewhere between $500 and $2,000 back for a pick 5. And so you kind of figure out there, and then you build your ticket size off of that.
One thing that I've tried really focusing on the last few months, even with the Magic Mike show, is I've pretty much since I came back since Colson was born, I was trying to, if I'm going to be chalk heavy in some spots, like you said, like a 3-1 into a 9-5, all right, shrink that down and go, 3 by 2 by 2 by 3 or something like that, but then do another ticket hammering. So trying to do kind of more of what you do, which is really just press your opinion, which is easy to say. It's a lot harder to kind of execute. So that is something that I'm trying to work on, but it goes along with this, that I kind of think that way. If I think it's going to be chalky, I ease up on it. When I hit the pick 4 a couple weeks ago at Saratoga, it was for a small ticket because I thought it was going to be chalky, and got lucky that the 21-1 or whatever Joseph O'Brien horse won, and not Bolshoi Ballet, but because that would have been a very, very chalky sequence otherwise. So, but yeah, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's see if we've got. Tell you what, Mike, I'm going to go to one of the surprise questions I've got for you here. What's a fun one? What's the weirdest thing a guest has ever done in your home?
Oh man,
I've got one I can give you if you need to think about it.
Steal our car, I guess, is the correct answer.
What?
We had someone staying with us, and I'm not going to say who or because there's a relation here, but we woke up one Saturday morning and our car was gone. So I'm going to go with steal our car because it technically wasn't stolen, but like you don't usually wake up and like your garage is open, your car is gone. Like that, you just gotta kind of be like, what the deuce just happened? So yeah, steal my car. That's going to be going the strangest thing that's guests ever done in my home. That's
really funny. I did not expect steal a car, especially not steal a car. Like just you were trying to guess something. That's fantastic. The weirdest thing for me, I couldn't really think of anything too weird, but years ago when I still lived at home, it was I think a summer between college years, and had a bunch of friends over. My parents were out of town. It's actually, my parents were out of town for the weekend in Tennessee, and so I had a bunch of friends come over for a party. Of course, that's what you do. And in our house, there was the second story was the master bedroom and master bathroom, etc. The main floor was most everything else, and then the basement.
We got to put up like an R rating thing here.
No, nothing too bad. But like the basement was like the party room, and then also my bedroom and bathroom were like kind of in the back. And so there's probably like maybe 10, 12 people, a good mix of male and female. And two of the girls were like, one girl that was at the party wanted to hook up with one of my friends. Her friend didn't want her to, and so was spending the whole night trying to keep them apart. And so like they basically were like, the two girls were trying to hide from each other. One's trying from the other, to the point that I didn't know this was happening. We might have been drinking a little bit. The girl that was trying to hide by herself went up into my parents' room and like hid in the bed, like under the cover. So like if you opened the door but the light wasn't on, you couldn't see. Didn't know any of this happened. 3 days later, like, party's all cleaned up. I figure I've got everything completely hidden. Not that my mom would have completely cared, but just, got everything cleaned up and everything like that. And she is pissed. And she's like, I can't believe that you had a girl in our bed. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, there's just some things that are too taboo. Like, no, like, definitely not in my parents' bed. I guess, like, one of her earrings had fallen off. And she'd fallen asleep in the bed. And so, like, it just didn't bother cleaning up, and I didn't know to go look up there. So, that was the weirdest thing. Someone went to go hide in my parents' bedroom, away from someone else, and then I ended up getting in trouble. I don't know. I think it took like several years. When I moved out to California, like the last night beforehand, my mom and I just sat around drinking, and I was like, "Look, we're just going to talk about everything. If you ever had a question or if you ever accused me of something, I'm just going to tell you flat out honestly because there's no repercussions here. I will tell you honestly anything." And she finally believed me after that night. It's the weirdest thing. If it was on a couch or anywhere else, I mean, I'd say, yeah, that you caught me, but no, not that.
Second weirdest one, we had a Halloween party where someone dressed up as Wonder Woman and ripped our gate off of our alleyway door in Santa Monica. That would be the second weirdest one where that actually got ripped off. But the first one's definitely stealing the car.
I can't. The stealing the car is great. All right, I got one from here from Twitter. Jim sent this. Has a reply. He wants to know, what should you look for when you're evaluating 2-year-olds? We're going to talk about horses again, as ones to follow. He was at Delaware Park on this past Saturday, saw a big horse named No Sabe Nada, who is a 2-year-old gelding by Jersey Town, won on debut at Delaware Park. Caught his attention because he closed in off of a fast pace, had a dream set up very green, but the jockey and trainer were pretty unknown for that circuit. So what are things, Mike, that you look for when evaluating 2-year-olds that you want to follow, whether or not they win on their debut?
Well, first off, if they don't win on their debut, I am generally looking for horses that don't close a ton of ground. I think that's the most obvious thing you can look for. And I think a lot of times those horses get overbet next time out. There's usually a reason why they didn't break well or why they were in the back of the pack. It's usually that they don't break or they're slow, which are two things that you don't want in a 2-year-old race. So a lot of times if a horse is like making up a ton of ground, I see that as a negative where a lot of people will see it as a positive. I'm looking more for 2-year-olds where trainers don't, and this is to come back if they lose. I'll get them if they win in a second, where the horse doesn't really get asked a ton, but does a lot of running. I think that like that even fourth where the jockey never whips them, never really goes to town on them, that tells me that horse has a lot of talent. And that was more of a prep race for the second time out when they want to actually have the horse take a step forward. So I'll look a lot of times when I'm watching replays of 2-year-olds that are running their second career race, I'm looking at the intent of the jockey in the race more than I'm looking at the effort of the horse. A lot of times, like I said, when you have those horses that close like crazy and make up 10 lengths, everyone sees that in the replay. That horse is getting hammered next time out. A lot of people don't look for those what I call like almost workouts, where it's a first race, but it's more of a workout for a trainer. When I'm looking for a horse that like I think is going to be a superstar, first off, track matters. So Delaware Park is not generally where I'm looking for those superstars. No knock on Delaware. The purses just aren't as big. And the maiden level, when you have huge purses in some of these places, are where you only have one chance to break it out of the maiden level, right? You want to do it at Del Mar, at Saratoga, at Oakland, where you're getting $100,000 in the purse to do that. Not at Delaware, you're getting $20,000 or $30,000, right? So I think that definitely matters. I'm looking for a horse that's just doing it easy, and their stride is nice and comfortable, and they're able to show professionalism. I like it when a horse doesn't win wire to wire. I like it when they win sitting second or third, when they're able to make an inside move. I think that matters. When they're able to save ground around the turn and tilt out, I think that makes a big difference. So I'm looking for maturity in the horse. I'm looking for and I'm looking for where they broke their maiden and then who they ran against. I think that's a big thing that people don't look at enough at. We talked about it in some of the shows that we've done with 2-year-old stakes. Every single time we have a 2-year-old stakes race, I go back and I look at every single last race for the horses that are in that race. Who did they run against? Where did they run next? How did they do next time out? Because I think that tells you as much about the horse as the race necessarily does. Because like we said, bad buyers can produce good horses. if there's a that 57 with High Oak that won, I didn't look at the race, but I'm going to say this, but if there was 4 horses that all ran 50s and won their next start, that 57 is a lot better than it looks on paper. And you saw that earlier this year when we picked I don't remember which race it was, but one of the 2-year-old races in Saratoga, only one of the horses had horses winning out of the races that it was in. That horse ended up winning that stakes at 7-2. That's a good way to find winners in those 2-year-old races.
So you kind of took what I was going to mention was High Oak as a reason that I liked him despite that 57 buyer. Getting back to what we talked about earlier when we focused on that race, the way he ran in that on debut and kind of knowing that Bill Mott isn't always going to have a horse keyed up to run a big effort. He was the best finisher. If you watch that race, that replay, he was the one that I wanted out of there. It was just something was visually the way that he passed horses, which is what Ross is saying too, is passing horses definite positive EV. Some of the older horses can't get by horses sometimes. That's something that happens a lot. We call them pack animals, man. They get into that routine where they just keep running and running. So, it's a great question there. We have one more, Mike, and then we'll end for the day here. Comes from longtime fan, Dr. Miranda Bungie. She wants to know, is Mike Somich aware that his doppelganger is Grocery Store Joe from The Bachelor? I'll be honest, I had no idea who this guy was until I saw the question, so I Googled it, and that's the image I saw. Not a bad, really, not the worst comparison I've ever seen made here.
I will take it. I'm happy with that doppelganger. I get the drummer.
That's a good side by side there. Yeah.
I get the drummer from That Thing You Do a little bit more than I do this dude. I think I don't know. I will admit I do watch The Bachelor, and Bachelor in Paradise started on Monday. My wife and I are looking forward to watching that on the DVR. I'll take that all day. Thank you, Miranda. I appreciate it. That's
the drummer from That Thing You Do. All right. Let's see. I don't know that movie that well, so
it was a wonderful movie. Yeah, the drummer from That Thing You Do is the thing I get. This is the one I get the most.
Let's see. Oh, that's not good. He's got sunglasses on. That's still not a good one. No, I'm with her. I like Grocery Store Joe.
You're going with Grocery Store Joe?
Although,
I'll take it.
Although, look at this. Now everybody else is saying.
Yeah, when I grow my hair out, it's yeah.
That's true. Actually, yes. When you get the curly going on there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, listen. That's good for the Magic Mike Show. I forgot to put a pause there. We'll go ahead and figure it out in editing anyways. Because I saw Dennis's question here, which is looking forward at next week. Not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. Who's going to be at the track Traverse Week? I believe Aaron and Jared are going. Dr. Miranda's going to be there with Kurt. I would assume Ricky's going to be there. And you've got to believe Saratoga Slim's there. It's the Traverse. That's the one weekend he's guaranteed to be at Saratoga.
Yeah. I mean, Miranda's ditching me at NHC. They decide since they're having a baby, they're not going to Vegas. Oh, I don't know if I should have said that. Never mind.
No, she's made it public. You're fine.
I'm getting ditched for Travers, which is not bad. It's kind of crazy that NHC is going to be Travers weekend. I would love to be in Saratoga, but obviously got to be in Vegas.
Well, and it's funny too that she's skipping for Travers because NHC 2020 is when we met her and Kurt. They came up and met us. What was that? I think that Saturday morning. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was So we're the first ones to meet them. So that's pretty cool. I won't be at either location. I'm going to be at Del Mar. John Lee's found out that I couldn't make it to NHC, that I couldn't do the trip to Vegas this year. And to make me feel better and to get me to stop crying all the time, he invited me to come down. So I'll be the guest simulcast host for the pre-race Saturday, Travers Saturday at Del Mar. But there is a big Saturday coming up that we can't skip over. That's this Saturday at Del Mar. Is the Pacific Classic weekend, baby. Tiz the Magician is going to be entering actually literally in 60 seconds. They're drawing the field for the Pacific Classic. So Tiz the Magician going to be in that race. It's reminding me a lot of the 2019 version where you had a lot of interesting horses in there. It made for a good betting race, and I had Higher Power as my top pick, and he won. So that worked out well for me. Didn't do a whole lot after that, but, maybe Tiz the Magician can buck that trend if he gets the win.
Well, I hope so. It's going to be fun to see Tiz in there. And Del Mar is having a mandatory payout on Saturday. So we're going to have a massive Pick 6 carryover to play into on Saturday at Del Mar. Super excited about that. You mentioned we got the Pick 6 tomorrow at Saratoga. Vicky, make sure you listened earlier. I know you said you came in late. I talked a lot about the inside trips on the rail. I'm guessing the rail is going to be out this weekend at Saratoga. So you're not going to see the same tendency on the inner turf this weekend. But then Travers weekend, I bet they move it back in. And by the way, that also means when you move the rail out and then in, the 6 and 7 path are beat up. It makes it even harder to close. And the inside is like pristine turf. So definitely watch the rail, especially at Saratoga.
So then, as a flip to that, does that mean that as it comes out, it really is going to help the closers because they're getting fresh grass that's all the way on the other side of the turf course?
I would have a propensity to I would say it makes it more fair. I'm not going to say it like helps them, but like first off, the rail out further means the stretch is longer. That's a positive for the closers. It means the turns aren't as tight. That's a positive for the closers. So there are these other aspects of it where it definitely helps the closers. Now the 3-path is actually the 9-path. So it's exponentially wider than the 3-path when the rails are in. So you do go wider in that sense, but I believe that the benefits are greater than the drawbacks, especially at a track like Saratoga, where that inner turf specifically, that rail is so tight. That turn is so tight when they go around there that they could really make it tough for any horse that's not saving ground.
Tight like a tiger. Vicky also asked if she was late. She missed the Got Stormy bashing. Vicky, all I'm going to say, just go back and watch the opening minute of the show. That's all you got to do. Just watch the opening minute. That's all you need to do. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Is Pratt on Tiz the Magician? Not sure. We're going to find out. I would assume he is, but I don't know for sure what Bob Baffert's going to do. He's got one or two he's thinking about entering, and Pratt's usually his go-to guy. So we'll see what happens. But Mike, can we please do Del Mar this weekend? Can we do it on the Thursday show?
I mean, you almost hit a $6,000 pick 4 at Saratoga, and you want to go to Del Mar.
But I don't. But it's Pacific Classic. I want to pick Tiz the Magician. I picked Got Stormy. I own Got Stormy. She won. Tiz the Magician. I'm going to pick him in the Pacific Classic, and he's going to win. So I want to be here to gloat about it.
Yes. Well, I own Tiz the Magician too. So
that's right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's very rude of me.
No credit here. This is unbelievable. We can do the Pacific Classic day. I love it. The problem is, like, I don't know. Are we really going to pick Tiz though? Are you going to play with your heart or your head here? We'll can't tell. You're literally before the draw of the race. You're saying I'm going to pick Tiz the Magician on Saturday.
He'll be on the ticket.
Okay.
That's fair. On the ticket.
That's probably logical too. He should be. He is one of the top tier horses in that race. So
he's in form and he loves Del Mar. He can handle the distance, although it might be a mile and a quarter might be too short. Nick wants to know, when is Moonlight Duro coming back? She's galloping, man. She's back at Del Mar, and Mandela said that it sounds like she's not going to need a whole lot of training to get her back into race shape. I don't know if the Breeders' Cup Distaff is still on the table. We'll find out, but maybe it is. We'll see.
Not soon enough is Magic's answer. He wants more Moonlight Duro in his
More
life.
Moonlight. Well, listen, Tiz is informed, so I'm allowed to let Moonlight. She can sit off and be fine. So anyway, this was a fun episode 300. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Say it again, say at the top of the show. You fans are what make this possible. You make this fun, enjoyable, and get Mike and I excited to come on and talk about this stuff. I've got plenty more of those special burning questions for Mike that aren't related to horse racing, so come back. Maybe on Thursday I'll throw up another one and we'll figure out some more information about my wonderful co-host, who you can follow on Twitter at SummerBomb18, number 8. I am Matt Curtis Kellerwood, the corporate overlords at Racing_Dudes. Make sure you check out the Rocket Hour. It's every morning on the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. If you subscribe and click the notification bell on our YouTube channel, you'll get notified as soon as they go live for that show, as soon as we're live, blinkers off. And Dudes Who Bet Sports just had episode number 2 earlier today. Aaron Halterman and his dad, Papa Dude, who's a big football expert. They broke down the preseason college football top 25, so go check that out as well. And then we'll be back on Thursday to cover Del Mar, so I'm very excited about that one. I wonder how many copyright claims we'll get for me playing the Bing Crosby song over and over, because we get one. Every time I play the song, we get a copyright flag.
Over's set at 6.5, 7.5 then?
All right. As long as I just needed you to give me something to aim for. That's all.
I mean, it's over 3.5 for sure. So we gotta get it it's over 5 definitely.
Over 3.5 before the Churchill Downs Bugler shows up. Yeah. Tune in on Thursday at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific.
Get the freaking Del Mar Bugler. Come on.
Right here. I have a video of him. I'll get some video of him on the 28th. How about that?
Get Lee's to do it.
We'll see you guys on Thursday. Until then, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.